So far, we've covered several best practices for triaging effectively and efficiently within Bugsnag. But just knowing about these best practices isn't necessarily going to be enough to deliver the best possible software to your users. In order to do that, you're going to need to find a way to incorporate these best practices into your overall engineering process. So let's talk about some ways to accomplish that. It's really important to make sure that consistent and accurate bug triage is a performance target for your team. So tech leads, engineering managers, and engineering leaders of all kinds, this one's for you. Each of your Bugsnag projects, and generally each one of your code bases, should have an owner, someone on the team who's ultimately accountable for the health and stability of that given project. Now, they're also accountable for making sure that their teams are following a process by which bugs are being regularly triaged and also accurately triaged, right? There are lots of workflow actions that you can take in Bugsnag. So it's one thing to hit inbox zero, and it's another degree of engineering excellence to be making the right triaging calls time and time again. So often the person tasked with this is going to be someone in an engineering leadership role, but they don't necessarily need to be the person doing the daily triaging work all the time or fixing the bugs themselves. They're the one who is responsible for creating a culture of regular triaging and accurate bug remediation within their team. So again, make it a performance target. Make sure that you're tracking the degree to which bugs are being triaged and the degree to which good triaging decisions are being made. When it comes to developing a triaging process within your engineering team, the fundamental question to be asking is who on the team is responsible for triaging bugs today? Now, there are all kinds of valid answers to this question, and what those answers look like depends a lot on how your team is structured, how responsibilities are spread throughout the team, and so on. But some ideas to get you started, things we've seen work really well, is coming up with a daily or weekly rotation where an engineer on the team is responsible for handling periodic triage during that workday or during that week. And by doing this, it should be clear to everybody on the team who's responsible for looking at bugs today, who's responsible for doing periodic triage today. But however you decide to answer this question, it's just really important to check in with your team and make sure that you have a good answer that you all buy into, that it's clear to everyone who's responsible for what as it relates to triaging bugs in your system. So once you've thought about your triaging rotation, how you spread the responsibility of doing periodic daily bug triage across your team, it's also important to think about how you want to handle the situation where someone on the team ships a new feature and there's a bug that's newly introduced in that code that that engineer just sent out. What if that engineer isn't the one who is on the triage rotation for the current day? How do you handle that? Again, as with the last point, there are lots of valid answers to this question. It really depends on how you distribute responsibilities throughout your team, how you deliver software, and so on. But one thing that we do at Bugsnag, and we have had a lot of success with this, is to make it the responsibility of the engineer who is deploying new code to perform any necessary reactive triage, which means addressing any bugs introduced in their new code. And this tends to make a lot of sense because it's usually true that the person shipping the new code has the most context on what that code is trying to do, how that code works, how that code fits into the larger system. And it doesn't necessarily make sense for the person who is broadly dealing with reactive triage of bugs across the entire system to look at that newly introduced bug. Usually what you'll end up having is the person who's doing the periodic triage. They'll be looking at bugs that are newly introduced from edge cases in legacy code or from things that were previously snoozed that have re-entered the for review state, or things that were fixed and have happened again in new versions of the code. But think about the distinction between that set of responsibilities and who looks at bugs coming from code you've just released. Again, lots of valid answers to this question, but think about it. What's going to work best for your team? So before we get into the live Q&A, I want to address one question we sometimes hear at this point. And that is, yeah, this all sounds really great. This daily triaging, this getting to inbox 0, having an inbox that has high signal to noise ratio, etc., allowing us to be efficient with our triaging process. That all sounds wonderful, but we haven't been doing a great job of triaging our bugs historically, and they've started piling up. So we've got a huge set of errors in our inbox, and it just feels daunting to start reviewing them. What can we do to get things back on track? So if your team falls into this category, if this describes you, first of all, I'd say for most teams with a little bit of focus, it's possible to plow through that backlog and get down to inbox 0 and get things on track. But if that's still too much to take on, we've got a few best practices, a few tips really to help you get your inbox under control so you can get back on track and start doing the recommended daily triage workflow. Earlier, we talked about the case of a monolithic code base and how using a shared bookmark could give a team a refined view down to the set of 4 review errors that applies just to their subset or subsection of a monolithic code base. You can apply this same principle if you're trying to get your set of 4 review errors down to a more manageable set. You can essentially create a filter that reflects the highest priority or the likely most impactful bugs in your 4 review set. And you can start triaging these bugs down first. And then over time, you can make your 4 review filter more permissive to include a larger and larger set of the total 4 review bugs. And we'll take a look at what this would look like inside the dashboard. Okay, so here we are looking at the inbox for a project that has 31 4 review errors. You can see that right here. And let's say this is a few errors more than it feels realistic for us to get a handle on in terms of daily triaging. And we'd like to follow this recommendation of starting with a scoped down version of just the most high impact 4 review errors. What we can do is we can start to consider some filters we can apply to zero in on the highest impact or highest priority of these 31 errors. So first of all, let's go ahead and limit this search to only those errors affecting the production stage. So we'll apply that. We say, okay, we've gone down to 29 4 review errors. Once we apply that stage filter, let's continue and scope this down. Instead of considering error, warning, and info level severities, let's just consider error. And for the type, rather than including handled and unhandled errors, let's only look at unhandled errors. And as a point of review, unhandled errors are errors that Bugsnag automatically detects and reports. Handled errors are errors that you manually notify Bugsnag about. So we'll apply these filters. That's taken it down to 11 4 review errors. And rather than considering all time, let's start by just looking at errors that have happened in the past week. So we apply that, and now we're down to 10 4 review errors, hopefully a much more manageable number than the previous 31. So from here, we can start our triaging workflow. But before we do that, let's save this search. So we can bookmark the current search, and we can call this priority for review. Now, the 2 options here, set as my default view for the project. Let's go ahead and click that. That means anytime you go to this project in Bugsnag, these filters will be automatically applied by default. And then let's also click share this bookmark with my team. This means that everyone on your Bugsnag team will also have access to this filter from their inbox and be able to triage down the same set of high impact 4 review bugs. We can see that our bookmark was saved. It's highlighted to indicate that we're currently searching by this bookmark. Now anyone on our team can click this and get to the same filtered view of their inbox. And from here, we can all proceed with the triaging workflow we already discussed. Okay, let's say a few days have gone by now The team has been consistently using this priority for review bookmark to do daily triaging, using this scope down set of for review errors. We've been consistently hitting inbox 0 on a daily basis. Now it's time to expand this saved bookmark to include a larger set of the total for review errors. So in order to do that, let's just modify some of these filters. So let's say instead of just considering production errors, let's include staging errors as well. Let's include warning level severities, apply that as well. Okay, now we're up to 7. And instead of just considering the past 7 days of history, let's also look at any bug that's occurred in the last 30 days. What we can do here is go back to this bookmark that we've already created and saved with the team and say update with current filters. Update shared bookmark. This is telling us that this is a shared bookmark, so everyone on the team will be able to use this updated version of it. We'll click update. So there we go. Now we have a new and improved priority for review filter that includes a larger set of the total for review errors. And following this process over time, we can get to a place where eventually we don't need this special bookmark anymore. We can just use the plain old for review filter that includes the global set of for review errors for this project. So again, creating a custom bookmark that zeroes in on the highest impact of your for review errors is a great way to iteratively work your way toward triaging down the full set of for review bugs. In some rare cases, the suggestions that we've covered so far aren't going to go far enough. And in these cases, what you can choose to do is to mark every error in your inbox as fixed. Now, this is a fairly aggressive tactic, but the effect that this will have is that any bug that is continuing to be ongoing will re-enter the for review state as it occurs in a future release of your software. And this should give you enough breathing room to jumpstart your daily periodic triage process, rather than trying to start that process with hundreds or thousands of errors to review. You can temporarily get down to inbox 0 and get onto a triaging workflow when the number of errors to review is relatively low. So again, this isn't something to do frequently, but it can be very effective in the rare cases where it's called for. So I hope you found these recommendations helpful, and I hope that they've given you some things to reflect on as you consider your team's approach to error triaging and your wider engineering process. Our ultimate goal here is to help you focus on the most impactful work at the current moment, whether that means fixing your most critical bug or building your next big feature.